So thank you everyone for joining us again. I'm here with Jan Jaap, sales broker from Fraser, and we're going to be speaking about the evolution of the role of brokers, digital influencers, and a number of other challenges that are facing the market at this point in time. Jan Jaap, I'll start with the nice easy one that we give everyone. And I know you said you're not a very frustrated person, so I'll rephrase it. What's the greatest challenge that the market is facing at the moment?
Well, it's a combination. We still have the bad parts from the COVID is the travel restrictions, stuff like that. Just this morning I had to cancel finally a visit in the US.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a client which we are trying to work on for quite a while, and it's simply impossible to get a visa for the US for European citizens. So that is to give you one live example of what we can call frustrating for us in our business today. Second thing is lack of inventory. You guys are on the statistics as much as we are. So we see that a lot of boats are sold. I was just checking this morning. It's almost double than last year. We are at 417 yachts sold this year, opposed to last year at 176 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can imagine, there's all the boats are gone, and that is a frustrating, between brackets, for us to present to our clients to say, sorry, sir, we don't have any boats to sell.
Sure. How do the two things relate to one another as well? Because obviously there's the challenge of seeing the clients, but at the same time, more yachts are being sold than, let's say, ever before, whether or not that's exactly true. But a lot of yachts...
Well, it's also, I understand what you're saying. There are a lot of boats are sold locally as well. Don't forget the American market is where it all really got off last year.
Mm-hmm.
After being everybody was paralyzed for about 2 months when the whole COVID started, and we having doom scenarios, and then people thought, well, we have assets everywhere, we cannot use them, while again travel restrictions. So let's go back to boating, and then they start buying, and then it was a snowball.
And so were most of the deals being done in the US domestically then? Obviously, we see the statistics, but so often we see them as a whole sort of global picture.
Yeah.
Has it been more difficult for European brokers? Because we know well that the US clients are still so important over here, and a lot of them will choose to buy over here and visit the yachts over here.
Yeah, well, it is. It's not particularly difficult for European brokers. You know, it's going back and forth. Sometimes in that part of the world, it's a little bit slower than it's a little bit here, so to speak. If you're decent brokers, we look at it in long-term project. It's you need to see in a 5-year average to see if it's really good or if it's really bad, because you can have one fantastic year and then followed by a very slow year. So, you know, then you can say, oh, the trend is going down. No, it's not. You have to see it in the long term. But what we've seen, let's say, when COVID started off, yes, the Americans were in advantage because the Americans are much more impulsive buyers. But we did our fair share of deals here in Europe as well, because there's a lot of inventory. It's either here or in the Med or the East Med, or it's in the States. So I think in the end it should be 50-50.
Sure. One thing we spoke about previously, and the two things kind of go together. On the one hand, it's the evolution of the Superyacht Broker, and the second, it's the emergence of these sort of influencer style brokers. I mean, today there's so much information available, and there's so many people posting pictures or providing a contact route for buyers. How has that affected the market, and how has it affected the way that brokers engage with clients? And is there anything that the client should be aware of when dealing with influencer style brokers?
Well, what it merely is, there are a couple of different styles of influencers. You know, you have the business orientated ones, you have the advertising marketing orientated ones, and you have the passionate yacht spotters / photographers. You know, if you have the and everybody has everyone has a different business model. Mm-hmm. So if you look at people like Superyacht Times, who started out as purely enthusiastic yacht spotters, and they build a business model around it with advertisements and stuff like that. Then you have the yacht, the guys with hundreds of thousands of followers. That is, of course, it has an influence as such, because we have a wider reach of mm-hmm. people looking at boats. But we see it more as an additional marketing tool, mm-hmm. rather than you see than anything else. Because in the end of the day, if you see something, a nice car on in a magazine, you're not going to call the editor of the magazine. You're going to call the guy where you can buy that car, and that's the same or similar with this. Is that we have the influencers. They put the attention to the product and the different products, and owners are looking on these sites and their Instagrams and everything like it. It's but what we've seen in statistics so far, when we track down, of course, where are our clients coming from, how do we generate the leads, etc., it's far less than you might think, mm-hmm. if you compare that with the reach they have on or count the followers.
I mean, that's kind of one of the things that we've all assumed, isn't it? In this market where you're dealing with such small units, in terms of, even if it's a record-breaking year, there will only be, let's say, 250 super yachts sold. Those figures are tiny for
17.
Yeah.
470.
417. Wow.
Yeah.
But is that 24 meters plus or 30?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was looking at 30 meters plus, but either way, it's still incredibly small numbers. Yeah. And if you look at an Instagram influencer, for instance, if they have 200,000 followers, what percentage of those people are really likely to be genuine buyers, and what percentage of them are likely just to be enthusiasts or people that think yachts are cool?
Yeah. No, well, that's exactly the nail on the head. It's if you look the Instagram influencers, it's for a certain product, it works fantastically. They much more successful than any marketing house can ever be. But we are not in the retail business of selling lipsticks or makeup or clothes or whatever. It's more in depth than that. Some of the you see it now with the cars. People buy them little by little via internet, because it's a standard product. And for some standard boats, from chase boats or product that you buy off the shelf, then it could be that it will influence that sales as well. But if what we have tracked down so far, and we have a very strong team on that at Fraser, the numbers are not that big, but we are taking everything serious, because our clients are looking at these Instagram accounts. Sure. Looking at it, seeing it, they see our boats, they see other people's boats, and we need to. We are always hoping that they're coming to us for some in-depth advice on that.
Have there been any instances of influencers or people running Instagram pages where an owner has contacted them directly and they've come to the shipyard and wanted either commission or an introductory fee or whatever it may be? Is there, obviously the danger is, whilst they're highlighting a product, they don't have the in-depth knowledge that the brokerage market has. But I know in yachting previously there has been certain discussions about who introduced who and what that you
have ongoing discussions forever.
Yeah, exactly. So have you had that from influencers or whatever it is, who they think the role of the broker is simply finding a product and pointing you in the right direction?
No, it's of course it's a logical step for these people, that because they see successful brokerage houses like ourselves, they think, well, that's easy money. I drop a client, get in contact with a client, I drop them on the doorsteps of a shipyard, and I get hundreds of thousands of euros of commission. Well, in real life, it's a bit different. You know, it's not about just dropping a name or knowing a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. It's much more than that. And the clients who can afford these boats are smart enough to understand that the guy who markets the boats are not necessarily the guy with the in-depth knowledge of the boats to help them to get the best product. Of course, an introduction can be made and a lead can be generated, and I'm 100% positive that will happen more and more, which is fine for us. I mean, we dare to finally find the right product for the right guy, and if it's the leads is coming from an influencer with a big or a small reach. Why not? As long as people understand that that are specialists in the field. You don't. Yeah. Well, if you go to a lawyer, you want someone who has an experience and been there, seen it, done it, yeah, rather than a guy who's just coming out of law school and having a big reach on, you know, that. If I can use that comparison, but you know what I mean now.
Yeah, sure. I think an important word you used there was specialist. As you say, the people with the financial resources to buy super yachts, you'd think that stepping into any sort of transaction, they want to find the best people with the in-depth knowledge, and I think that's sometimes where the brokers are overlooked, the knowledge bank that the brokerage community is, and how that forms the sort of engine room of the super yacht industry in terms of getting the transactions moving forward. So could you tell me a little bit more about how the role of the broker has evolved? Because we've mentioned influencers and different platforms coming in. Has that changed the way you have to approach the market and your approach to clients? Because I imagine clients now, when they come and speak to you, they already have more information than perhaps they used to have, say 20 years ago or whatever it may be. So could you tell me about how your role's changed and how you approach?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the role of a broker has changed in several ways. First of all, it's the marketing tools. If we go really long way back, then at the beginning there were just a few brokerage houses around. Then we got the start of internet. Well, for the younger viewers, they really think we are a relic now, but there was a time that didn't exist. We put out faxes and stuff like that, send brochures and all that type of communication. It has changed dramatically over the years, and thank God, because it's good that people now can form an opinion, can have a lot of other information. I'm very big fan of transparency in the market. As long as it is transparency and it's not some information based on nothing, you know, on hearsay or whatever. I'm very happy with competition because it means that we need to be even more sharper than ever before. Because the end of the day, you want to have a client selling not even one boat, but several boats, and the only way you can do that is just to inform them as good as you can with the combined knowledge of a large company like ours. If I see that there's hundreds and hundreds of years of technical knowledge, of management knowledge, of charter knowledge, of sales knowledge. There's a lot of stuff I don't know as a sales broker, but I just look around or send one question on our Fraser app, for instance, and within a split second I have answers directly from the source, and that makes a big difference than before, where you need to invent the wheel every time because you didn't know who sold this boat, what is the history of this boat, etc. So that evolved big time.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, for the better. The more information, the more factual information we can give to the client, the better he can make his decision.
Sure. And let's look at the performance of the market itself now. You mentioned inventory earlier, and so my question to you, based on the strong sales performance and the lack of inventory, is how sustainable is the current brokerage market? You mentioned that when you do your research and your analysis, you use 5-year cycles, because if you have one particular good year or one bad year, that's not representative. So where is the market at the moment, do you think? Is what we have sustainable, or is it just a purple patch?
Yeah. We hope it's sustainable. But frankly, I think we need to like in every hype, it slows down after a while, and me personally, I think that it is what's going on now. It's you see the shipyards, they are completely booked, fully booked, and no matter what size, no matter which shipyard, if it's Italian, Turkish, Dutch, German, no matter where you go, all the shipyards are fully booked. I heard in Italy they're selling slots just for the sake of having a slot available. Why it is difficult to say if it's sustainable, because if you are selling so much product, you need to realize that you need a lot of subcontractors. Mm-hmm. Subcontractors define as well the final quality of your product. You need to have your product control, your quality control on your product. So if I don't know which subcontract I'm going to use in a boat that I'm going to deliver in 3 or 4 years' time, how can I guarantee that the client is getting the quality that I'm selling? You know, mm-hmm. It's just a small example of the challenges the shipyard have to encounter. And talking to shipyards all the time is part of our job. But they don't take this lightly neither. They, on one hand, everybody's very happy about the huge order intake, but then it starts. Because
you still
and it's like with everything. It's if you send a brochure to someone, that's not a sale. It's just one part of it all, and that's also for the shipyard. Is getting an order in is one thing, and getting an unhappy client and the quality that you're selling out, that's another thing, and that's more for shipyards a challenge than for the brokerage. Brokerage challenge is, where do we get the inventory from?
Is this creating a bit of a bubble at all? Obviously, with the slots filling up and demand still being high, obviously this is something that we saw sort of pre-2008. I'm not saying it's the same situation, but it might be a sort of lesser bubble. Are we seeing people start to sell builds before they've been completed? Are they selling slots? Is there any sort of competition growing in that sense? And is that a danger moving forward?
Well, that's always a danger. You mentioned the pre-2008 that had a little bit, of course, of a different background and a different era we were living in. But yeah, definitely, in those days there were also people buy. There was a big demand and a small supply. Mm-hmm. So people were flipping boats, as they call it. You know, it's they're buying slots and then sell them on, and it's a risk. Well, yeah, that's something we need to see how that ends. I think price inflation will get we will get to that in second quarter somewhere next year. I'm afraid. I hope I'm wrong, but that's probably what's going to happen.
One thing you mentioned earlier was the impulse buys, especially on the US side of the buying equation. Now, when it comes to an asset as big and as complex and as expensive to run as a super yacht, impulse buying doesn't sound like the most sensible thing in the world. Is it going to be that once we return to normal slowly and people return to their lives, are we going to have a lot of buyers who have bought impulsively who are putting them back on the market, either because of the cost or because they don't have the time to use them, or whatever, all the classic examples that we know so well? Is that
I understand your question. We are we have an optimistic look at everything, of course, because we are in the pleasure yacht business, so it's purely for pleasure. So what you have just mentioned, yeah, maybe the impulse buyers, they get regret and they will sell. Why not? It's an eye opener and they love it so much and they go to the next boat.
Yeah, sure.
That's our mindset, you know. But I hear what you're saying. It is up to a certain size.
Mm-hmm.
It is an impulse. You say, let's try it out. And for some of them, it's like I said, an eye opener, and everybody loves it. Like main part, 60-70% of my business is returning business. I told the guy his first 60 footer, and we're now looking at 60-70 meters, and in between we bought and sold several boats. You know that's also possible. Huh? It's not only because it's an impulse. A yacht purchase is in a way always an impulse, because it's the ultimate indulgence, of course. What you can do, it's nice.
I have a question on the repeat buyers. You mentioned sort of 60%, and that's a statistic that we hear a fair bit. Maybe people say 2/3 of sales will come from repeat buyers. Now, you just gave a very optimistic answer to my last question, where I provided a negative perspective. So I'll give you the opportunity to do it again. When we talk about the market, we talk about it being a negative thing that we don't get in enough new buyers, but also that 60% of people are willing to buy again. That looks very optimistic for the market, because people are coming in and they're staying in. So is it good or a bad thing that we're so reliant on repeat buyers? It seems like both to me.
Now, it's not something on relying on. It is more you're looking in afterwards. You say, hey, this is the third time I sold this guy a boat, and we're looking at, of course, like I said before, we are tracking tracking all our sales. Why? Where did it come from? How did it happen? Is it repeat? Is it new? Is it thanks to new media? Is it boat show? We need to have a constant view on and knowledge of where do we get our clients from,
mm-hmm.
and then you see in the statistics that it's 60 or 70% repeat buyers. But is it only repeat buyers, or do we get in stream from new owners as well?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a matter of that we rely on it. If you do your good, of course, that's the ultimate tap on the shoulder, is that someone comes back and buy a new one or another one, or sell another one. But it's not something you rely on as a business model. You need to keep on searching for new clients, for new markets, for people who not familiar with yachting, and how can we get them excited about it. And because the money is everywhere in the world to be spent on boats. That is how strange it might seem, but that's a fact. In every continent, we have a lot of money available, and a lot of people want to spend it. So it's our task to get those people on board as well, literally.
Sure. And you've mentioned this research process a couple of times now, and it's something that we completely agree with on this end. I mean, you've seen the amount of data we produce and the amount of reports we create with the idea to driving the market forward. But when it comes to clients, you mentioned sort of demographics, I'm sure age, location, wealth profile, all these things will be taken into consideration. My question to you then is either a really easy answer or a really difficult answer is, what is the most interesting and profound thing that you've discovered from this research? What has there been something you've discovered about buying pools or clients that you didn't realize? Because if we look at things like the charter market and you go, oh, where's everyone using their boats? We know that most of the use is still in the Med. There's a lot of data that proves answers that we're already aware of. But is there anything that you discovered that's either helped you in your sales or you just found particularly interesting?
Well, it's a complicated question you have there. It's with a lot of answers, so to say. The first and foremost, we're trying to understand the market and trying to anticipate on it. On the other hand, we are in a leisure market which can change from one day to the other, like what we seen a couple of years ago when all the Russians all of a sudden disappeared. So, the one thing you learn from all the statistics is that yacht sales, yacht charter, yacht management is not mathematics. You cannot find the magic formula to use to sell all the boats in the world, etc., etc. There's so many different factors to take into account that you cannot predict, or it's super interesting. Like we are very knowledgeable driven company. So in terms of technique, in terms of law, in terms of maintenance, in terms of management, in terms of sales. So we want to know stuff, that's the only way. If you're in this type of business, you need to know. You cannot have ever enough knowledge. So this whole statistics and investigations, etc., is part of the bigger bag of tools, if you want, that we use to service the market.
Sure.
And it's super interesting. I love it. I want to know if I sign off a new build 50 or 60 or 20 or whatever meter. I want to know every deal I do, every deal I close, I go back till day one, because I want to know, where is this guy coming from? Why am I selling this boat to him, and my colleague who's in the desk in front of me, or my competition, or whoever. So it's important to understand, to fine tune all the time, every day, the way you work. That's the most important thing to get it done.
Well, I think you just gave any sort of young aspiring broker the sort of keys to the city there. I think if they take that advice on board, they can certainly do a lot worse. Yeah, no, I think that's all we have time for, really. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me, and thank you for answering my questions in such a detailed and profound way. Because I think if anyone takes the time to listen to this, there's actually a lot of useful information in there. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, Rory.
Well, hopefully we'll be sharing a beer in Monaco fairly soon or something.
I'm sure.
Perfect. All right. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Bye.